This program is sponsored in part by the National Catholic Society of Foresters. Hello again and welcome to Looking at Social Justice. I'm Jim Grant, and as I say every time I start the program, I'm so privileged to have guests who are going to be enlightening us about what's going on in social justice, usually right here in the San Joaquin Valley. The issue that we discussed very recently was about the environment with Kevin Hall, but another equally important issue right now and always is immigration, is the issue of migrants living among us, those with or without documentation, farm workers, people who are here for decades, people who have families and businesses. We're going to be talking today with a very good friend of mine, Ariana Martinez-Lott, who is a community organizer in charge of the Valley Network of Rapid Response to help us alert people over the crisis with ice sweeps across the valley. Just on the 15th of July in the Fresno Bee, there was an article front page mentioning that Ariana would have been the person needed to be interviewed by Ashley Pano. And what Ariana said then, there's no relief, even if something was not to happen, which in retrospect, it didn't necessarily happen in the valley. But she says we have to be continually on high alert. The hotline has been quiet for the most part, but people are very worried. There are some in the community who try to play it safe, but other folks try to go about their daily lives. This is the situation that we face in the valley. Ariana, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, about PICO and Faith in the Valley, and about this Valley Network that you have created to help us get in touch with the most vulnerable among us?
Yeah, thanks, Jim, for having me. So a little bit about me, how I got to this work, right? I think we all have to find our point of awakening and realize when our lives intersect with the well-being of humanity. And so for me, how I got to this work was really through relationships with getting to know a lot of the moms in my neighborhood. Before, I was actually just doing an internship, right? So at the time, it was putting in my hours for this internship, which really ended up being a deep transformation for me in seeing a lot of the Spanish-speaking moms that at the time I did not know that 9 out of 10 of them were undocumented. So before then, my only perspective of people that were undocumented is what you hear in society, right? That they should do things the legal way, they should go back to their home country, they're only a burden to society. And so I really had to face my prejudice when I started being in deep relationships with so many of these women that not only showed me how they were actively involved in their community, but really challenged what I knew or what I didn't know about our broken and outdated immigration system here in the United States.
When would that have happened? How recently? When?
This was in 2011. It was a Christian internship to live in biblical community, but also seek God's heart for the most vulnerable.
And then when did you gravitate towards working with PICO and with Faith in the Valley?
Yeah, so I think that was a gradual transformation for me in the sense of I had just come to put my faith in Jesus, and I was trying to be a good believer in loving my neighbor, right? What does loving your neighbor mean? I think we're going to continue trying to figure that out, right? And so I think I went from doing community with people, doing community projects and whatnot, and really realizing that there was more than just being involved in the neighborhood, because like I said, so many of these moms that were actively engaged still faced systemic barriers to being able to be a part of our everyday society. So for me, I started questioning, what is it that I don't know about the immigration system? And the more that I sought to learn, the more questions I had. That it was so complex that I started realizing I don't know if I can ever fully feel as though I am learning to love my neighbor unless I am really seeking to understand what the systemic barriers are and what our role and responsibilities are in seeking laws that reflect God's biblical values. So I think that's what drew me to PICO, right? It's this faith-based national organization that is really drawing on biblical principles and of principles of various faiths to talk about how do we seek laws that really seek to value the dignity in every single person, right? So I think trying to figure out how to dig deeper into the systemic barriers in the United States really was what drew me to PICO and Faith in the Valley.
So what is your, let's say, concrete work right now? Your capacity, how much of an area are you involved in, with whom? What is your routine of actually concretizing this transformation? Because we do know what it is. Faith in the Valley is something that the diocese has partnered with for a long time. We are just so grateful that we are receiving a CCHD grant, which is the Campaign for Human Development from the bishops, that we partner with some of your colleagues over their projects. So the Diocese of Fresno is very committed to your type of ministry. But about what you do, Ariana, that's something that hasn't been on this program.
Absolutely.
Tell us about what you do.
Yes, so what do you call it? I'm learning the English idioms. Is it like a two-pronged approach?
Oh, definitely. Two-pronged approach.
Two-pronged approach. Let's just say that. So let me give you a little bit of what the Valley Watch Network is. So a glimpse of what the Valley Watch Network is there was a lot of families that were afraid, right, with all the threats around mass deportations. So we decided that we really needed to figure out a very tangible way to show our community that we were standing with them. And so actually in one of the parishes in Selma with Father Lupe, so they were already doing a very grassroots type of rapid response network. They had a line of communication, text messaging systems. Who do we contact if they saw something on the street, and what was the support system around it? They really motivated us to figure out how can we create an opportunity to stand with one another across the valley, following their leadership.
So after St. Joseph Selma with Father Lupe Rios, who is really a giant in this work. It's amazing to know that right here in the valley, that's one priest in particular that we want to highlight. Father Lupe is awesome. But there are others.
Yes.
So after the model of St. Joseph Selma, where did how has this watch developed, grown? Where else do you see it implemented?
So what we worked with the Selma team and other parishes across the valley is to say, let's develop a platform in which we can train volunteers across the valley, and I mean from Bakersfield to Stockton area. It's a wide range of territory that we're really trying to strengthen, and there's still a lot of work to be done, so there's a lot of needs to really invite more people to participate in this network. But we need to work together across the valley because we see the way that immigration works. So the network is really, when it's simple, when an impacted community member has some sort of situation with immigration, they call us, and then we figure out what are the support systems that we can then follow up with. So, for example, if this happens often, where a wife calls us and they say, "My husband was detained 2 days ago." So on one end, we figure out what are the legal networks that we need to tap into to figure out how to support the family in now trying to represent their case in court. And then on a really important side is, what's the community response to this? How do we walk alongside this family now is experiencing trauma, right? And so there have been situations where people have walked alongside them in offering prayer and really creating like a covenant prayer circle around them and throughout the entire situation, right? There have been volunteers that have said, we're going to offer up rides for the kids every day, because now the husband, who was the only person that was driving, is now in detention center. That's just one example, right? So there's been other situations where there were actually quite a few individuals that got detained the 28th of February. So what happens the first of every month is we pay the rent, we pay the mortgage, right? But in certain situations, the family needed to, they found a trustworthy lawyer, and they needed to pay for the lawyer fees, so they used their rent money for that. So as a church community, we said we're going to raise the funds to help this family pay for this month's rent so that they can get themselves back on their feet.
Which churches might be involved, Ariana?
Mm-hmm. So we actually have churches across the valley. You might be able to help me with the names. Father Misael in Stanislaus County, I believe it's St. Francis.
He would be outside my domain.
I see.
So
yeah.
What's great to know is that you bridge Stockton Diocese and Fresno Diocese, which is interesting that you did admit we're Bakersfield all the way up to Modesto. It's like expanding our own limits.
Yeah.
So you need help, and where we would want to help you now is in everything that's maybe Bakersfield, where we are maybe less present, that we would now hearing this, that yes, you're not just Fresno County based, you're San Joaquin Valley based.
Yes, but in Fresno County, we actually work really closely with St. Anthony Mary Claret and Sacred Heart. So on both ends. Obviously, these are churches that have really close ties with how do we reach out to the most impacted communities, right? So they help us get the word out, let people know about the Valley Watch Network. We've hosted Know Your Rights informations at both of these parishes, and we've really, I think what's most important for us in this network is, if at the very least what we could communicate to people is that they're not alone and that there is a support system that is seeking to stand with them. I think that's a big win. There's often times where we have, I'll use Sacred Heart for example. One of the leaders at Sacred Heart actually went door to door knocking to offer flyers for the event for Know Your Rights. And she said that she talked to a woman that was just really afraid to even talk to her. And the woman said that she feels really alone and that this was the first time that someone had reached out to them. So my hope is that we can continue to be a light of God and showing people that they're not alone in this time.
Tell us about the Know Your Rights workshops, because there is a card which I forgot to put out that we could have shown, the red
Yes.
card, or there's even a blue and white one that we have. Tell us about the rights people do have
Yes.
that are being surfaced during these trainings, that they know what they don't have to say, what they don't have to do legally. So introduce us to Know Your Rights.
Absolutely. So first I'll say that if there is a parish that is wanting to reach out to their community or just have the red cards available, contact us and we will get them. We're working very closely with ILRC and other legal service providers to give us those red cards so that we can distribute widely. So those are available in many languages. But I think that's one thing that we're really trying to work hard in, letting folks know that regardless of immigration status, we all have constitutional rights here in the United States as human beings. So there's some that are really important for everyone to know, whether it's someone who's directly impacted or an ally, because we never know when we're going to be able to provide that information to someone, or when we might see a situation on the street where, by bearing witness to what's going on and by simply being able to tell the individual, these are your rights, there's a lot of impact that can happen around that. So the first one is you have the right to remain silent. That's really important, very basic, but individuals have the right to remain silent, whether they are stopped in the streets or whether they're questioned in their homes. They can say that they are exercising their rights, and if they have those little red cards, they can just hand it to whatever official it is, and telling them that they're exercising their right to remain silent. The second is you have the right to an attorney. For individuals that are pursuing their immigration case, they don't get provided. They don't like a public representative. But they have the right to seek counsel. So that is one thing that a lot of what we've found is that a lot of individuals don't know that they can actually continue pursuing their case in court. They have this assumption that if they get detained, they're just going to be immediately deported. And we're really trying to walk with them alongside in the process of how do you know your rights in every situation, so that you remember that there's always the next step to support you. So the right to an attorney, the right to not open your door. We have unfortunately seen that oftentimes, not every time, but there have been some situations where ICE officials can be very aggressive when they come to people's doors. So they use forms of intimidation to get people to open the door. And of course, families get afraid. They have kids at home, so they'll open the door immediately, thinking, we're told we need to respect authority, and we do, but we'd also have the right to protect ourselves within the parameters of the law, right? So one of those is you have the right to not open your door, and the other one is really important. You have the right to not sign anything that you don't understand. So oftentimes what we're seeing is that immigration officials are tricking people into signing their own orders of deportation, telling them things like, if you don't sign, you're going to be held in detention for 5 years. We'll make you a bargain if you sign. We have talked to someone who had that situation happen to them. So we always tell people, if you do not know what you are reading, ask for an interpreter. If they refuse, exercise your right to remain silent and to speak to a lawyer and not sign anything, because it's really important that we know what we're signing in every step of the process.
Regarding ICE, we know that there's a determination from the state that neither sheriffs nor local PDs can assist and hand over to ICE anybody that for another reason has been apprehended for something else, not immigration related. Is this being done correctly here in the Valley? Are there places that you would signal out as they are in violation, such as in the courthouse? Let us know, are they cooperating?
Absolutely.
Is the sheriff's office cooperating with ICE or not? And the Fresno PD?
So we are trying to monitor that situation as closely as possible. We work with other partners that are experts in what you're referring to is SB 54, which is a state policy that really created parameters around local law enforcement working with ICE. So right now there's a lot of gray areas that we are seeing potential violations, but we don't have enough evidence to prove that it is. So there are certain loopholes, I should say. So for example, one of the really big loopholes that we're seeing with our sheriff's department is that sheriff's department cannot technically call ICE to pick up an individual, but certain information can be made to the public. So the release of an individual can be made available to the public, thus can be also made available to ICE. So we're really trying to monitor those situations and how they get used. We just had a situation recently where there was a joint task force. So a certain joint task force is technically an exception. So we're really working hard at ensuring that when the law says that they can work together, that they're actually doing it within those parameters and not finding loopholes.
It would be good maybe to give the number and to start giving some information how people might be able to reach you or to reach a website, a location.
Absolutely.
Tell us some information that we can let people hear about slowly.
Yes, absolutely. So we really want, especially we want the impacted community, and I say impacted people that are undocumented, to have this number on hand. But also we want allies to have this number on hand, because we've actually had situations where allies have called us and said, we think there's something weird going on at this location, we're not sure, and then we've coached them through what to look out for, and what are the next steps that we can take. We try to send volunteers out, so it's always helpful for anyone to have this phone number on hand. Now, this isn't the phone number to call if people want to volunteer, so I'll give that information. Yeah. So this is solely for emergencies with immigration. To call our hotline, and the number for that hotline, which again spreads the entire valley from Bakersfield to the Stockton area, that is 559-206-0151. 559-206-0151. That's the hotline number. Now, if people want to volunteer, or especially if there is a parish that is trying to figure out how to get together with other members of their congregation and talk about various ways in which they can get involved in the Valley Watch Network, there are so many opportunities to really strengthen this network, because we want to provide a wraparound support system around these families. So if anybody's interested in talking more about that, they can email me at ariana@faithinthevalley.org. Ariana is ARIANA at faithinthevalley.org.
When someone is stopped in a car, you also have that same possibility, or where does it go if you're driving and you are stopped by ICE? What does one do? I know we practiced one time at Sacred Heart that type of a situation, but can you share so that it's clear what one's rights are when they are stopped, if it's stopped by ICE.
Yes, absolutely. So the same thing, the same rights still apply. It gets a little more complicated when stopped, because we're told that obviously if people are driving, right, they need to carry a driver's license with them if they're able to have one. In California, thankfully, we're in a better position where people that are undocumented were granted a way to be able to get a driver's license. Now we're asking people to the greatest extent as possible to not carry documents with them that specify that they are from another country, right? Matricula, foreign passport, etc. So they still have the same rights to remain silent, to talk to a lawyer, to give the red card to the official. Those red cards are really important to have. But one of the things that we're really urging people is to maintain as much of a calm attitude as possible, because we've seen tragedies happen. In Dinuba, there was an unfortunate situation where the family got really afraid, rightfully so, right? They panicked and they tried to drive away. They tried to flee from the officials, and then ended up running into a light post, and unfortunately both of them passed away. So that was really tragic, and we really don't want to put people at harm's way. So we're asking people to try to remain as calm as possible and remember their rights.
We have a minute. Is there something that you really do want to make your last plug, Ariana?
Yeah, I think, again, I think I would just say we really need the support of everyone in these efforts. So I just invite people to find out more about ways in which their congregation, their parish can get involved in these efforts.
Well, I want to thank Ariana Martinez-Lott for doing this first program today. We know that the Pope has made it very, very clear that there is a commitment on the church to be participating in this commitment towards relieving the crisis which is worldwide. Migration, the idea that people are displaced, dislocated, and moving from all over the world to other places. He has 4 words that he urges us to act on: welcome, protect, promote, and integrate. We want to thank the Valley Watch, which is doing tremendous work across the valley in this network to help do those things of welcoming people, protecting them, promoting, and integrating them in our society. Thank you, Ariana. We'll be back with another program next time. Till then, God bless.